Well, good afternoon, Alistair. Good to see you again. I think in those stark terms, it is pretty surprising. I think we maybe need to drill down into a little bit to get what I think the Chief Inspector was meaning, and also put it into a proper context. If he's saying that in the very rare instances where someone who has no previous convictions was caught stealing a very low value item, and it transpired that they were doing that because they didn't have any money and generally didn't have the money to buy food, then actually there's nothing particularly new in that, because inevitably with people with no previous convictions, the police can perhaps give a caution first. But where I think people will be concerned is if this was a suggestion that somehow A, there was a large problem of this, and that B, that should be a general reason for going easy on shoplifting. And that will be wrong on both counts. What I've always found, both having visited some of the convenience stores in my own constituency, but even more over my years as a barrister and talking to many judges, is that overwhelmingly shoplifting is driven not by poverty, but by addiction. About 75% plus, and many judges would tell me more, but certainly at least 75%, most people would say, of shoplifting, acquisitive crime, stealing from shops, is driven to feed either drug addiction or alcohol addiction, and often related mental health issues that go with it. So that's either stealing alcohol or things that you can drink or sell, or stealing other items to sell. Now that's the really big problem. That's the main cause of shoplifting. Secondly, invariably, people with first offences and no previous convictions are unlikely to be charged under our system. But when you get repeat offences, then I think there's a broader obligation to society to do something about it. We have to remember that you're talking about small businesses very often here. And if people are repeatedly stealing, then whatever the level of the products that they're stealing, that creates a problem for the honest shopkeeper. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, particularly some of the those who are addicted who are stealing, that's accompanied with some pretty unpleasant and threatening behaviour. So what I don't want it, and it certainly shouldn't be, and what concerned me was any suggestion from the Chief Inspector that shoplifting should be minimalised. It's not a victimless offence. There are victims. It causes distress and harm to the people who work in those shops, and it causes economic damage too.
Yeah, fascinating. And I didn't interrupt because I wasn't aware of that argument about the addiction part of it. And I think that is important that people understand that. But also, you and I are at one, not for the first time, that perhaps Mr. Cooke could have been a little more cautious in his choice of words in confirming something that has tended to be the case when it's in the hands of good and sensible police officers, men and women. But you mentioned in passing there, Bob, as I know because I've known you for so long, that you're also a magistrate and a practising lawyer too. In the more serious cases, I kind of feel I want you as a magistrate to decide whether the accused deserves a little bit of compassion, a little bit of understanding, or in the more serious cases, even a judge. I'm not sure I want a Bobby on the beat making that decision there and then, because it's that old thing about encouraging the others, isn't it?
Well, I hate to correct an old friend. I'm not actually a magistrate, Alistair, but I was referring to many magistrates I know and talk to.
I'm sorry, I thought you were a magistrate. You are a practising barrister. Sorry, I do apologise for that. But anyway, back to my point. Have
been for many years, yeah, and in the criminal court.
So shouldn't the bench decide these things rather than the Bobby on the beat?
Well, again, I think there's a little bit of scale in it, and that's why I've never had a problem, and it's never been novel that people who got very small value items where there is no previous convictions, before you get them into the criminal justice system and risk them getting a conviction, which can then have consequences if you want them to get out of offending behaviour, that's the point at which I think the police are entitled to have a measure of discretion.